So this is the final part of the course. This is actually my favorite part of the course because we're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about branding, marketing, growing your business. Now I'm going to tell you this, you're going to need 3 things to get up into this high-end market. So the first thing I want you to do is obviously have the work, but you're going to need a brand. That's your identity. And then you're going to need some contacts. So at the Daisy Hill shoot, I had the unique opportunity to speak with a couple of luxury wedding and event planners, Jillian and Deb from Events of a Lifetime. We're going to take a look at that interview right now. I'm super excited about this segment because one of the questions I always get asked by videographers attending my workshop is, Ray, how do we get on a high-end luxury wedding planner's radar? Deb and Jillian, what do they have to do to get on your radar?
You have got to bring value to our brand, and we are going to check out to see how you're dressed, to see what your social media looks like, to see what your brand is, first of all, before we even entertain looking at your work.
Be at the top of your game, and then planners will seek you out.
And I think it's a matter of brand awareness as well. I mean, we're hiring wedding filmmakers. We're not hiring Uncle John who's gonna be with a video camera.
Of course.
Well-trained professionals that can come in, add an element of elegance to their wedding just by their personal presence. They have the skills needed to get those excellent shots without taking a ton of time. They're not disrupting the flow of the day because they've educated themselves and they're very, very good at what they do. Our favorites are the ones that are unflappable and courteous no matter what, and well-spoken.
Patient.
Patient, we expect that. So those are the kinds of people that we're dealing with.
What if a videographer reaches out to you by email and he sends you a link to his work, and the first thing you see is the branding on the website that looks kind of shoddy, like they haven't put enough time and effort into that? Sometimes my fear is that you're going to turn away so quickly, right, just from the poor branding, and you're never even really going to get a chance to look at the work.
Well, it makes sense, right? Because you're in a visual medium.
Right.
So we want to look at a visual medium and see excellence. So if your website is not reflective of your work,
right,
then you're shut down immediately.
Right.
You really are.
Really are.
And I think another important thing to remember is the way you act at the event.
Exactly.
So not just how you look when you come through the door,
How you carry yourself.
the way you carry yourself at this event. So, you know, obviously you don't want to be at the event, you know, throwing a few back at the bar and things like that, or maybe eating the guest food.
Exactly.
And really, sometimes it's not even just about you, it's about your team.
Absolutely.
So, like when I'm at an event, I know what I'm doing, but now I'm like, oh my God, where's my team?
Exactly.
How do they look? Are they on their phone? Are they Instagram? You know, like I got to figure out where my team is, what they're doing, and how they're making me look, because I'm literally the brand. Like everybody's looking to me, and they are basically like an extension of me. That wedding planner is going to go by and they'll be like, who are they with?
Right.
And they're going to say, oh, they're with Ray Roman Films.
Yes.
And guess what? They may just check me off the list. And I'm going to tell you something right now. It is going to be so difficult, correct me if I'm wrong, to get back on your radar
yes.
after
Almost
a bad
impossible.
experience. I always feel like you guys are designing a certain look for your clientele.
Men have to wear dress shoes, black jackets. They don't have to wear a tie, but all black is usually what we request, and with female event professionals also.
Even when you come see us, I mean, it's not just a matter of putting on the suit for the event. We want to see who you are as a person, what's important to you, and if it's projecting a professional image, that's what we're looking for all the way throughout. We don't want somebody that's just putting, you know, a role on. We want to know that through and through that you take pride in your work, no matter who you're meeting with, if it's the client, if it's with us. And so we look for those higher elevated approaches to the project.
Just keeping a high standard at all times
Absolutely.
with like every facet of their business.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what happens at the event. The expectation from the client is always going to be here. They don't want to hear about excuses. They don't want to hear, but this happened or but that happened. That's not why they're hiring us at this level.
You're exactly
They're-
right.
They're very discerning. They are looking for wedding filmmakers. It's important to them. The quality is important to them. Not just because you're recording their special day, but basically they're leaving a legacy. this piece of art is a legacy that they will treasure, their children will treasure, and that's what they expect at this level.
When I'm at an event, maybe the lighting's not perfect. Now, I've had a lot of luck in just telling, say, like a wedding planner, I just say, look, the room looks amazing, but if we just did this one tweak to the temperature, the room would look better on film and photography. So are you receptive to maybe like a wedding filmmaker coming up to you and just kind of giving you feedback like that?
Absolutely. We trust what you say, your judgment, and then we'll assess the situation. But lighting is key, and we always have lighting staff there available to help us with that because it dictates everything in the room.
Plus, it's in the way they ask the question. I mean, you just asked it so nicely. Hey, the room looks great. You know, if we made this little tweak, this is what it would do. You're explaining it to us.
Exactly.
And I mean, it never hurts to ask the question, but the way you ask the question makes a difference on the outcome.
As a filmmaker, you should have that conversation and ask those questions. And that's how you would impress us. Those are the questions that you ask us, and then we're like, well, this person knows what they're talking about. We'll consider that filmmaker in our...
And it's not like you want to come to these events and rock the boat, right? Like be, you know, that filmmaker, you know, that's just rocking the boat all over the place. For me, it's really, the diva. But you know, honestly, I feel as though if you're kind of there and you kind of care, right? I feel at the end of the day, it's all for the client.
We want the best for our clients.
Yeah.
We want to deliver the best.
For somebody that's got the work, they've got the brand, they've got everything ready to go, and they're ready to jump on your radar, essentially, but you've already got, your planet is full, right? Like you've already got your go-to people. How difficult is it at that point for, say, like a wedding filmmaker to squeeze into the circle?
So you have to build a relationship. So how do you do that? Well, you know, networking is vitally important.
Joining chapters that are professional chapters, like WIPA, for instance, and I'm vice president of WIPA. We go to WIPA, that's the Wedding International Associations. We go to them for the best of the best because you join a chapter, then you have already elevated your brand. Because being a part of that brand, you have to have insurance, you have to have, you have to have a proper website, things like that. And just to be a part of a chapter like that puts you in a different league, I would say.
So there's a certain criteria you have to meet before you can even get into a chapter like WIPA.
We have trained eyes as planners, so you have to impress us.
Yeah. And you've seen all the same stuff. Like I can't imagine being a planner and seeing all the 50, 60 video links that you'll get a week of videographers or filmmakers trying to get on the radar.
Yes.
Right.
Now, another thing that I'm going to tell you is there's something called peace of mind. And this is a biggie with the planners.
Big.
They want peace of mind. So if they've already got like a core group of vendors that do not give them headaches, it's going to be really tough for them to kind of like open up the door and take the risk with an outsider. They don't want to be getting phone calls a week later or 2 weeks later that they're having problems with the filmmaker or the photographer or this person or that person, because now it's maybe affecting your brand.
Of course, and your delivery time too. Exactly. That's very important. You know, after, it's not just the process up until the actual wedding. When do you deliver your product? When do you deliver the film to the client? That's very important also.
So don't do what I did when I first got into business and I got way backlogged. I took on way too much work, but now it's very manageable.
Right.
Very manageable, and you have to get it to that point because the last thing you want is a wedding planner emailing you and saying,
where's the film?
Where's the client's film? You know, you're past your deadline. You're past your contractual deadline. Where's the film? And trust me, as soon as the client's calling them, they're going to be calling you.
Absolutely.
Things like that. So once you're in that circle, you better protect that, and because that chance may not come again. If you had one golden nugget that you could bestow upon wedding filmmakers to help them kind of like break into the high-end circle, what would it be?
So it's really important to join chapters, network, put yourself out there. After you've introduced yourself at a networking event with a wedding planner or other event professionals, take them out to lunch, take them out to dinner, and then form a relationship because it's all about relationship building.
That's awesome. And there's other conferences too, right? Like they'll have
Yes.
wedding
There's
conferences.
Engage that you can join. There's so many of them. There's a destination wedding planner conference that's usually done in Europe. Go to those things. It's a big investment, but you're investing in your business and yourself. So it's very important.
I always say, wait till you're ready. Wait until the time is right.
course.
Wait until you can look at like every aspect of your work and your brand and feel high-end. Like feel as though
Confidence. Yes.
if you landed on that page, it kind of like looks and feels high-end, and then you're ready.
Correct.
So Deb, Jillian, thank you so much for being here and sharing these valuable nuggets with our wedding filmmakers. This has been just an amazing opportunity to kind of dig into the mind of a luxury wedding and event planning company.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Ray.
Enjoyed it.
Now I want to tell you how everything works. First of all, you have your low to mid-range. This is where everybody starts. This is where everybody's growing their business. But guess what? About 80% of the brides are going to live in that low to mid-range market. And you have to be careful not to become complacent if you're looking to get into the high-end market, because that low to mid-range, it's very comfortable. You can make actually pretty good money in the low to mid-range. And I was doing it for a long, long time with Roman Empire Productions, right? I'm making my 2,000 here, my 2,000 there, my 3,000 here, my 3,000 there. And I'm thinking I'm making pretty good money. And the thing is, it's very consistent work. It's very consistent money. And you can get really comfortable caught up in the low to mid-range. And that's fine if you're a high volume company. But if you're looking to get into the high end and maybe only do like 20 events a year, you really want to be in that high end market, right? You're catering to the top of the top budgets are in that top 15, top 5. Top 2 is just ridiculous. You're just spending ridiculous sums of money in that top 2 to 5%. That's really where you're looking to go if you're looking to get into the high-end market. What I will tell you is this: it's very challenging to get into the high-end market. You're talking about very small circles of vendors. Everybody knows each other. And if you mess up in the high end, you're pretty much done, and they're gonna bump you back down to the low to mid range. And you're probably gonna live there because you've already established a bad reputation in the high end, and you don't wanna do that. So my advice to you is this: if you're still growing your business, if you're still making mistakes, you're still looking at your work and you're like, okay, my composition still needs some work, my color still needs some work, my camera work still needs some work, maybe my brand still needs some work. What I suggest to you is this: just hang out in the low to mid range. For the most part, nobody knows who you are in the low to mid range. You're kind of just hiding out because you've got thousands of people, thousands of vendors. Everybody's growing their business. Everybody's making mistakes. They're doing all the things that they got to do to hopefully one day maybe get into the high-end market. So just be patient. Just rest easy. Everything's a process. You know, everything's just a gradual process. As you grow your work and the work gets better, naturally the brand is going to get bigger. More people are going to start to notice your work. And guess what? You're going to start to make better contacts. Maybe one day you're going to be able to make contacts with some luxury wedding and event planners that are going to be able to get you some high-end jobs. So for me, early in my career, I knew nothing of the low to mid to the high. I kind of thought, hey, we're all working together. We're doing these events. We're busy. We've booked all these clients. We must be like the A team, because I was showing up to a lot of these weddings and it was a lot of the same vendors. You know, I was working with the same photographers, the same DJs, the same planners, and we were all friends, and we'd show up and we'd smack five and we'd say, hey man, we're like the A team, man. Clients are always hiring us and we're at these events and everything's great. And what I didn't realize at the time was we weren't the A team. We were basically like the Z team. You know, we were getting hired because we were the cheapest vendors in town. But you know what? I was happy. I was making money. I was growing my business. I knew nothing about a brand at that time. And this is what I want to get into now. I remember one of the events that I went to. It was at a high-end luxury venue. Of course, I was charging my low to mid-range rates, my Z-list rate. But I was at this venue and I knew who the photographer was going to be because it was on the timeline schedule. And I remember somebody asked me, they said, hey, you're working at that big fancy venue, who's a photographer? And I told him the name, and it was this female who named her company after her name. And I says, yeah, it's her. And he looked at me and he said, you're gonna work with her? And I said, yeah, man, who is she? Oh man, she's like the creme de la creme. She's got like her own gallery at the Four Seasons Hotel and all this. She is like top of the food chain. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I got to this event, I shot the event. She was great. And then I remember I ended up on this other job. And same thing. This male photographer, he had named his company after his name. And I thought at the time, I said, you know, that kind of sounds pretty exclusive. And I think what they're selling is exclusivity, right? And I thought it was really interesting because literally, like when I made contact with people, I was just saying their name. And just the reactions of people, just to hearing the name, I thought was really interesting. And I had this crazy idea. I said, what if I can do that with the video guy, right? Like the dreaded traditional video guy that everybody thinks comes to the event, you know, tripod on wheels, big obtrusive camera and all this. I kind of wanted that exclusivity thing going on. And I said, I want to try this out, but I don't want to do it right now. But I want to try this whole exclusivity thing out when I'm ready. I want to build a business and I want it to be my name. I want to be Ray Roman Films. So I decided to do a test. Before I changed everything from Roman Empire Productions to Ray Roman Films, I wanted to do a test to see if this whole exclusivity thing worked. So I created two packages. I had a package A and a package B. The only difference was package A had Ray Roman as your exclusive cinematographer, and I charged double. And I went with that for a few months, and guess what? About 90% of the clients started booking package A. And that's when I knew this whole exclusivity thing was gonna work, and I knew at some point I was gonna change everything over to Ray Roman Films. But I wasn't ready yet. I felt at the time my work wasn't ready. Obviously the brand hadn't even been created, and obviously my contacts were still low to mid-range. So this is what I suggest for you. Now you have this opportunity to look at your work and just ask yourself, does my work look high-end? Am I ready to make the jump into the high-end market? If your answer is no, just hang out. I can't stress that enough. Just be patient with this process. It's gonna be very slow, very gradual process, and you cannot rush it. Eventually the work's gonna get better, the brand's gonna get bigger, and your contacts are gonna get better. But it's all a process. You know, a lot of times people ask me, they said, at what point did you make the jump from the low to the mid and the mid to the high? And I think about it and I said, that never happened. Everything was really slow and gradual. When I felt comfortable, I made the jump. Now here's the thing about the high-end market. Like I told you before, it's very small circles. Everybody knows each other. It's very tough to get into these circles because a lot of these planners, like we learned from Deb and Jillian, they already have their favorites. They already have their vendors. So how are you gonna get in there and knock these people out? Because that's your goal. You have to be very competitive. You gotta kind of wanna win. You gotta have that winning mentality. You said, okay, I gotta give them the confidence to wanna hire me for their events, because those planners, like they told you, they're looking for peace of mind. They don't really wanna experiment with new people. So how are you gonna get into those circles? It's gonna be very tough, but you can do it. You can break into any circle, and I'm gonna tell you why. Most people will reach a point where they become complacent. They kind of think they've made it and there's nothing more to learn. They don't have to evolve. They can stop growing the business. They can stop growing the brand. They kind of get stuck in the mud. And these are the things that I love to take advantage of, is people that get complacent, because you can kick out anybody from one of those circles. You just have to keep working hard. You have to have a very competitive mentality. You have to stick with it. Just keep going, because this is a competition, especially in the high-end market. In the high-end market, it's a bigger competition because you're talking about real money now. And there's gonna be some scraps up top, right? There's gonna be some scraps. You gotta be ready to scrap. This is a competition, but you gotta stay the course. You gotta stay hungry. You gotta work hard. And you gotta make sure that your work is the creme de la creme, because that's what they're gonna go for. Because I'm gonna tell you, high-profile clients want the best. It wasn't until later on when I started creeping into the high-end market, that I started understanding that you needed an identity. In my case, I am my brand. I am Ray Roman Films. And I built this brand up. You know, it's pretty big right now. Imagine if I walk through the door looking like a slob and people don't know me and they look over and somebody says, hey, there's Ray Roman. And everybody turns their head and here's this slob walking through the door. Do you think that's gonna have some type of effect on my brand? My work at that point doesn't even matter. All the work that I've done to build up to this point, it won't matter. So you have to look the part. Remember, you are your brand and you have to look the part. If you wanna be high-end, you gotta look high-end. Everything about your business has to be high-end if that's where you're looking to go. And this branding stuff isn't just about how you look and how you dress and things like that. It actually extends to things like your website, your business cards, even your email headers, the emails you sent out, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You don't want to be all over the map with your branding. It has to be consistent. The last thing you want to do is be in that high-end market, charging low to mid-range rates. You want to be able to charge high-end rates if you have really good work, you have a really strong brand, and you have really strong contacts, these wedding planners, event people that are getting you these jobs. You have to make sure you're charging accordingly, because if you're not, you start to hurt the industry, and you don't want to be an industry killer, right? You want to kind of raise the standard and make sure that everybody is getting paid relatively well based on where they're at. So back when I was Roman Empire Productions, I basically had all these packages. They were loaded down with products and extras and all this. And I was hoping for the platinum package sale, right? At the time, I didn't realize I was making two massive mistakes. One of which, I didn't know anything about the wedding, right? I'm basically giving them this package price without knowing how much work's involved. I don't know the first thing about the wedding, but I'm saying, no matter what happens at the wedding, I'm gonna film it and this is the price. The second mistake I was making was massive, right? Because I was basically limiting how much money the client could spend with me. And I never thought about this at the time, right? I'm booking these packages at $3,000 to $5,000. I think it's great. What happens if that client comes through the door and they've got a much, much higher budget for video? And I don't have anything left to offer. Everything's bundled into my packages. I've just lost like a large sum of money. And this is a huge mistake I was making for years. It wasn't until one day, actually a photographer that I know, he invited me to his new studio. So I drove down there, he showed me the space, he showed me all the shooting rooms and all of this, he showed me the post-production editing room, and I was like thoroughly impressed. Then he brings me to the client viewing room. And I went in there, they got a big plasma TV set up, they've got all the Italian leather books and all this, and I'm looking at all this stuff. I'm really interested because all this stuff has to do with their brand. And at that point, I was looking to kind of build my brand. So while I'm sitting there, he comes over, he says, hey, I want to show you my pricing guide. And I said, man, all right. And, I'm thinking, I was like, this is kind of personal stuff, about the business, but I'll take a look at it. I want to check it out. So I started looking at this stuff, and I looked at his starting rate for photography. And by about that time, I had already raised my video rates, and I was looking at these rates, and this guy was really good, like third generation wedding photographer, award-winning photographer. He had my respect. But I was looking at these prices, and I decided to give him some business advice. And I says, hey, my friend, I think you can charge more. And he looked at me and he said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you got really good work, man, but these rates, his rates were starting at about $3,500, $3,500, $3,700. And I was thinking he could charge more. I said, yeah, man, raise the rates up. And he looked at me and he goes, man, those prices don't include anything. And I looked down and I said, what are you talking about? He goes, that's just for my time. And I looked down and I said, what do you mean your time? He goes, yeah, man, that's just for me to shoot the wedding. That doesn't include any product. And I was thinking, man, like, what kind of thing has he come up with here? I was thinking about video at the time, right? I was thinking about a client calling me after they paid me like $3,500 or $3,700 and asking me where the video is. And me saying, oh, that was just for my time. You wanted the video? That's extra. And that's essentially what this photographer had set up, right? So he brings over about 5 to 6 of his latest contracts. And I'm looking at the final contracts and the final numbers, and they were massive. And basically what happened was he was able to sell all this a la carte stuff after the wedding. And all my a la carte stuff I have bundled into my packages. So I made the decision, I'm gonna go back to the studio, I'm gonna grab all my packages, I'm gonna rip everything out, and I'm gonna sell everything a la carte. Now the thing was, I had to include something, right? Like I didn't think I was gonna be able to get away with just selling my time as a videographer to clients with no actual product. But at that time, I was very proud of my feature film, and that was my main product. So I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna include Ray Roman exclusively, right? And I'm gonna include the feature film, and that's it. Everything else is gonna be an extra. So things like trailers, documentary edits, rehearsal dinners, engagement shoots, all that stuff was now gonna become an extra. So about the same time, I was making the transition from Roman Empire Productions over to Ray Roman Films. So this was actually perfect timing, but I needed to get my price right. Like, how much am I gonna charge? I mean, we all wanna make big bucks, right? But it has to be relative to three things, which is gonna be always your work, your brand, and your contacts. What I always recommend is figure out how many weddings you wanna do a year. Do you wanna do 20 weddings a year, 40 weddings a year, 50 weddings a year? In my case, I just wanna do, say, like 20 to 25 weddings a year. So what I did was, I slowly started to raise my price until I was only booking 20 to 25 events a year. One of the things I started doing was sending out questionnaires. I still do that today because I have to learn about the wedding. I want to know, obviously, the location, how long the ceremony is going to be, if they have any special performances. Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? Is it sunset? Is it nighttime? I want to know about all these things, especially audio. I want to know what the audio setup's going to be like at the ceremony and reception. Based on the answers to this questionnaire, I'm going to prepare a proposal and send it out and hope they're going to respond to that proposal. But here's the thing. When you're in the high-end market, you're going to lose the low to mid-range, right? So you're going to get less responses to that higher-end proposal that you're trying to send out. Once they approve the proposal, I'm going to send out a contract. Now, guess what? When they receive that contract, they're going to see for the very first time a whole list of extras that they can actually add to that base price if they have the budget. If they don't have the budget, I'm still going to be happy because they've already approved the happy price, that base rate. But guess what? If they've got a bigger budget, now maybe they're going to look at that a la carte and say things like, oh, you know what? Maybe we'll add a trailer. Maybe we'll add rehearsal dinner coverage. Maybe we'll add raw files. And now I'm not just making my happy price, I'm making my happier price. Contract and a la carte pricing templates are available to download in the course resources section. So as we get ready to close out this masterclass, I just wanted to share a few thoughts with you. One of which, when I started out on this journey, it was never my intention to become an average wedding filmmaker. That was never part of the plan. My goal was always to become one of the best. Once I felt like I had accomplished that, I wanted to conquer the world, basically. I wanted to go out there. I felt like I could compete with the best of the best. I created this masterclass because I wanted a blueprint for you. I want to help you get to the next level. I want to push you into that high-end market. But the other side rests with you. You're going to have to believe it here first. You're going to have to firmly believe, just like I did when I was a cop and I was just starting out, that one day, once I learned the craft and I learned the business side and I built the brand, I could become one of the best wedding filmmakers out there. You can do this, I promise you, but you have to believe it first. I wish you so much success on your journey as a wedding filmmaker. And remember this, if I did it, anybody can do it. I'm Ray Roman. Thanks for watching.